Hey there, this is Taya. Today we'll be talking about markers. So, what's a marker? There are several ways to explain what is a marker to a dog in dog training. Then I'm gonna go from a simpler one to a more complicated one. So in simpler words, marker is the way to communicate with the dog, saying that the dog did bad job or good job, or the dog is doing great, or you like whatever the dog is doing. And it's one of the ways of teaching operant conditioning or teaching commands to a dog and being very clear and intentional with what you're doing. That's a more common way to explain it. The more scientific way to explain it is a marker is a bridge. So in operant conditioning, for example, when you're trying to teach a dog to sit, there is a stimulus. You come to a dog and you ask the dog to sit. That was your stimulus, and the dog needs to provide a response. So for example, you come to a dog, sit, the dog sits, that's the response, and you want to reward that response. That's great, that's operant conditioning. But what if you are standing 50 meters away from the dog and you shout to the dog, "Hey, buddy, sit!" The dog sits, it still did a job. The problem is that you only have 1 to 2 seconds after the dog responds to provide the reward, because only then operant conditioning will work. Otherwise, it won't. So, we created markers. Marker is a bridge between a response and a reward that can come in 1 to 2 seconds, and then you can reward the dog after, so then operant conditioning can still take place. So for example, the dog is 50 meters away, you're like, "Sit," the dog sits, and you say, "Yes, good job," and you run to the dog and you give the reward. Yes, it took you 30 to 40 seconds to run to the dog and give a reward, but operant conditioning still took place because of the marker. Additional cool thing is that the marker can be a secondary reinforcement by itself. So if you consistently implement markers in your training and you are doing great with your markers, you're rewarding them greatly, then the marker can become a secondary reinforcement and you don't need to add additional reward to a marker because the marker would work by itself. There are several different marker types. Today, I will tell you about 4 main that I use with my dog and that make the communication way clearer for you and for your dog. So there is the terminal marker, which is number 1. Terminal marker is when you want a dog to sit and you don't want anything else, just to sit, and then the dog will be done. You tell the dog sit, the dog sits, and for me, terminal marker is bra. I give the dog the terminal marker, meaning the dog did good job. I don't want any attention after that. There also is an intermediate marker. So if I want the dog to sit, then to lie down, then to sit again, then to stand and to bark, and I want the dog to know that the dog is only done after the bark command. So I come to the dog, I say sit, and I give the intermediate marker yes, meaning the dog is doing a good job, but the dog is not done yet. So sit, yes, lie down, yes, sit, yes, stand, yes, bark. Bra, terminal marker. So we often use terminal and intermediate markers together, and the terminal marker often comes after the intermediate marker to say that, hey, yes, you did some things together, and now we're done. So you did a good job. Intermediate marker is not like it doesn't have to exist in your training, but it's good because it makes the communication more clear for the dog. Also, there is a no reward marker. For example, in shaping, if I bring my dog a bowl and I want my dog to place his paws on the bowl and the dog starts digging at the bowl, I don't want to reward that behavior because that's not what I'm seeking, but I don't want to discourage it with a correction. So I'm giving a no reward marker, meaning that, hey, I like that you're interacting, but maybe try a different way or like try something else. Or so it's sort of, I don't want to refer to it as a correction, but in some ways it is a correction, but let's just call it a no reward marker. So for me, it's Nini, and the dog needs to offer a different behavior, but it's very neutral. So a correction has some form of negative reinforcement to it, even with the tone. The no reward marker is neutral. You don't want the dog to have any negative feelings about no reward marker, and you don't want to be mean with it. You just want the dog to suggest something else. So imagine if you're teaching your child how to, I don't know, ride a bike, or let's say you're teaching your daughter or son how to drive a car, or I don't know, you're teaching your kid to play piano and or a violin, anything, whatever you can imagine. And you don't want to be specifically mean about teaching them something if they're making a mistake. You just want to encourage an improvement. And no reward marker is somewhat encouraging that improvement. And then we have a correction. So if you don't like whatever the dog is doing, I have a correction marker saying which is basically a sound that I make when my dog is trying to reach something that I don't want the dog to reach, or whatever. So there are negative markers, there are positive markers. And here you can see how I implement them in my training. Let's take a closer look on how terminal marker was used. I introduced a stimulus to a dog, saying, "Sit pretty." The dog responded to a cue with its body, and I gave the dog terminal marker, bra. Bra. Once the terminal marker was given, I gave the dog the reward. Now, a combination of intermediate and terminal markers.
Sitz. Yes. Wow. Yes.
I gave a dog a line of commands saying, lay down, sit, lay down, sit. After each correct command, I gave a dog yes as an intermediate marker. Once I was done with an exercise, I gave a dog a bra command. The exercise was done. And here's the use of no reward marker.
Blah. Yes. Sitz. Yes. Blah. Yes. Sitz. Yes. Nini.
I gave my dog a line of commands, and after each correctly performed command, I gave an intermediate marker yes. Then I asked the dog to sit. The dog sat for a second and then raised his front paws up. So I gave a no reward marker saying Nini. The dog corrected himself, and then I gave it a terminal marker bra. If you don't have a marker yet, that's okay. That's totally fine. I'm gonna make a separate video about how to charge a marker when you come up with one. But for now, let's create some rules on how to pick a marker. So the marker should be a very short word, specifically that you can say with the same tone, in the same manner, and without being too broad with it, or without having various variations. So for example, if I have a marker yes, I only come to my dog and I say yes, 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 yes. That's the same idea of a clicker, because clicker is still a marker. So when you're using your voice, you should be intentional and you should use it as a clicker. That's why I'm asking you to come up with a very short word that will come. It can be a sound. It can be I don't know, a whistle. It can be chirp, chirp. A lot of people using that I think in European training. But the simpler the better, because then you'll have an opportunity to recreate it in the same manner every single time, and it'll be way easier for a dog to understand it and to respond to it.